With the main slate of NFL games for Week 1 taking place this Sunday afternoon, I wanted to take the time for you guys to put together a list of both running backs and wide receivers that I will personally be paying extra attention to here so that you can as well and watch and follow along with me to figure out how some of these names are going to be used in the respective offenses this year. These are players that I'm both optimistic and pessimistic on. There's a variety of each in this video, and I overall just want to get a better understanding of how the coaching staff wants to use the players this season and what we can expect for the rest of the year to come. So if that sounds interesting to you guys, make sure to drop down, smash that like button, and click the subscribe button to the SFS channel here. We're posting fantasy football content every single day of the week and helping you guys smash your leagues this season. Of course, I don't want to waste too much time, but if you guys have questions for me, last minute lineup advice you need, drop that stuff down in the comment section below, and I'll do my best to get back to as many of you as possible before kickoff on Sunday. So thanks so much, you guys. Let's get started. All right, here we go. I prefaced this in the wide receivers episode as well, but one thing I do want to note, this video is being recorded roughly half an hour before Thursday night kickoff. I have not included any names from the Thursday night action as I haven't seen it yet. This video will be coming out fresh on Friday morning, so just keep that in mind as you watch today's video. It really shouldn't impact analysis at all because, again, the Bills and the Rams are not featured in this video. But just something, if that's what you guys are looking for, to check out some other episodes from this week. So A.J. Dillon / Aaron Jones, only one player up on the screen, but just know we're talking and referring to both here, are the two players that I want to talk about and first take a peek at. I'm only counting this as one situation though, so don't worry. We've got 4 more to dive into and break down for today's video. But this is A.J. Dillon for me is really the biggest interest that I have in taking a look at for this week because I highly expect a offense that is going through a major transition right now and that is potentially without their on paper number 1 wide receiver this week. There's going to be some changes. There's going to be a unique feel and flavor to this Packers offense this season that you don't see from too many teams in the National Football League. Most teams have a better wide receiver core on the Packers, and as such, they don't have to rely on running backs nearly as much as I expect this team to have to this season. But with unproven names like Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson, even Sammy Watkins, a veteran who we know what he is, but he's not going to be enough to keep this team carrying on a week-to-week basis, they're going to have to rely on their very, very impressive running back room to get yards created in both the rushing and receiving phases of things. So I'm a huge proponent for fantasy this season of expecting both of these players, that being A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones here, to both find coexisting success in lineups for us this season. But I'm really interested to see how that's going to come about. Will that obviously come to fruition is the first and foremost thing to that. But if so, what ways are they able to do this? Because this will paint the picture and obviously pave a path for future backfields to do this in the future. That was redundant. But there is running backs like Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara and what the 2017 season that were able to make things work as well in a very different situation. So there's multiple ways to do this here. I think first of all, you're going to see some 2 running back sets from this team this week. We'll see again if this stuff is the case. This is the stuff I'm interested in finding out if is true here. I also expect a lot of sets with A.J. Dillon in the backfield and Aaron Jones line up in the slot or potentially even out wide if they want to. I think they just have to sprinkle these guys in all over the formation, use lots of motions. I could see Aaron Jones going in motion quite often and a lot of screen game involvement for A.J. Dillon here. So it'll be really telling to see, especially if there's added urgency and dependency on the running back position if Allen Lazard does not suit up for this week, how they want to use these players because as Aaron Rodgers said, these 2 guys are going to be focal points in this offense, catching passes and scoring touchdowns all year long. And that's the other key thing I wanted to note on. Both of these players are capable pass catchers and capable of scoring TDs on the goal line. They have both had success. Obviously, Dillon's frame speaks for itself, but Aaron Jones was 2nd in total touchdowns in the NFL back in 2019 and has had double-digit TDs in seasons since then. So it's a very interesting room to take a look at here. Lots of stuff I'll be keeping my eye on there in Green Bay for week 1, or actually the game is in Minnesota. So Travis Etienne taking on the Commanders is the next running back I'll be taking a strong look at here for this week. First and foremost is simply because of the fact that James Robinson is expected to be available for this game. That means you're already going to have that day 1 shared dynamic between those 2 players. We'll see how much, this coaching staff, despite the fact it's his first game back from injury, so they might be a little bit more conservative with him than usual. But the recovery process, according to Jags reports, has went extremely well. Obviously, having a late season Achilles injury and transitioning into a week 1 availability status for the Jacksonville Jaguars yards is awesome for James Robinson, but I'm really excited and interested to see what that means for Travis Etienne, because similarly to Green Bay, I think Travis Etienne can coexist with James Robinson. I'm not so sure things go the other way around here. I don't know how much of a lineup piece Robinson will be, but I'm very optimistic about Etienne's receiving involvement for this team. I did make the comparison a little bit earlier this week where I talked about Travis Etienne being similar to Alvin Kamara. I got some backlash for that. Obviously, let's just put this bracket around that assessment and kind of go back on things here, clarify things a little bit. My assessment of Travis Etienne in comparison to Alvin Kamara is as a pass catcher. Being a skilled player out of the backfield that's incredibly elusive, is an excellent flanking weapon out of the backfield, and a guy who can, Kamara doesn't always do this, but can line up in the slot or out wide and run a route pattern designated to him by the play call. So essentially, that's where my comparison comes from. There's a little bit of confusion about just pure rushing styles and whatnot. I don't expect Travis Etienne to be the most dynamic running back in the league. He's not someone that is going to run guys over like a dump truck, but I don't really care about that. I think when you get him in space, and this is a player they need to get the football to because they're a little bit undermanned at other positions. They actually traded away Laviska Shenault recently. You've got Etienne, Zay Jones, Christian Kirk, James Robinson, and maybe Evan Ingram if he's healthy or not. So they clearly need playmakers here in Jacksonville. To me, on paper, Travis Etienne is one of the top two alongside Christian Kirk to get the football to. And I think Doug Peterson will find ways to do that. I think he'll be a very prolific and dynamic pass catcher for Jacksonville's offense this year. And as such, I think he'll be a very productive fantasy player. But we just got to see what that's going to look like this year. We don't know where Travis Etienne is going to be running routes from. We don't know the frequency and regularity of goal line touches that he's going to experience here. So there's a lot of stuff to break down. I think his ceiling is having somewhere between 1,500 and 1,600 yards from scrimmage. He's not someone, like I said, that I expected to be too amazing in the rushing game. After all, Alvin Kamara, who is a player we think of very highly, and, obviously I made that comp too, has never had a 1,000-yard rushing season. So I think if Etienne could go 800 and 800 or 750 and 950, we'd all be pretty satisfied and happy with that at the end of the day. Again, that touchdown production will play a big portion in his ceiling as well this year. So I'm hoping everything goes well. I'm very optimistic. He's an excellent breakout candidate for this year, and his skill set is awesome for fantasy football. But in a stingy matchup here in week 1 with an interesting dynamic of a returning former handcuff, or he is the handcuff now, former starter, we'll see how Jacksonville distributes their RB touches for this week. Chase Edmonds is the next name I'm keeping my eye on here. We talked some Miami offense in the receivers video, talking some Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. As such, I'm very excited and curious to see the backfield distribution with a surprise cut, Sony Michel not making the roster. He already found himself a new home in the Los Angeles area with the Chargers. However, we don't exactly, it is always somewhat of a mystery with Miami's backfield. It feels like every year we're not exactly sure who's going to get the touches. I remember last season, Myles Gaskin was a decently high draft pick and then is just completely irrelevant in fantasy leagues after he emerged from the middle of nowhere in 2020 and became a lineup relevant piece. So Edmonds for me is kind of in a 1-2 punch situation with Raheem Mostert. I'm expecting change of pace situations, maybe some early down work to head Raheem's direction. But my main concern, and by the way, the Michel cut does elevate Gaskin to the RB3 role. The main question for me is who's going to handle the goal line work. Chase Edmonds is a very undersized running back, so I don't think that bodes too well for him here. And I also, if he's not getting lead running back work here, that's concerning to me. If that's bouncing Raheem Mostert's direction, I'll be a little bit frightened. Now, Raheem Mostert is very injury prone, so there's a possibility we see a shuffling up of the depth chart throughout the season. But my main issue is that if Chase Edmonds isn't seeing first and second down usage or goal line usage, you're going to get him pigeonholed into the same issue he had with the Cardinals, and that's that he's an incredibly dependent receiving weapon. I think Chase Edmonds is an awesome RB3 or 4 to have this year. I'm very excited about his ceiling and what he can be, but he's going to have to bring those other elements to the table to really maximize what he could be in your fantasy lineups this year. And my other concern is if you're running Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill on short underneath routes trying to get them the ball in space, you're just going to get clogged up if you're working between the line of scrimmage and the 5-yard line, running routes into that area of the field. Now, yes, they're going to push the ball downfield. I totally get that. I'm not saying they're going to run short stuff every play, and this isn't an anti-Tua, can't throw the ball deep type thing here. It's just, I want to see how he factors into this offense in an official NFL regular season matchup in a fairly tough schematic opponent here in the Patriots, who seem to maybe be a little bit more prepared this time around, coming to Miami extra early this week to try and acclimate to that heat. So for Chase Edmonds, I'm going to stay cautiously optimistic, let's call it. I think he could have a really nice fantasy season in store here, but it's going to depend and come down to how his usage is incorporated into the red area, that being the 20-yard line and closer in opponent scoring territory, and how he's used on first and second down. If he's getting lead back rushing opportunities, then my concerns pretty much go out the window. He'll live up to his draft stock. He'll be a successful draft pick. But if not, if he's not getting either of those things, then we're going to hit the panic button a little bit here. If you guys are enjoying today's video, make sure to smash that like button. It takes 2 seconds, helps me out, super easy here, and helps other people find the SFS channel and the content we produce. We've got tons of new videos coming out every single day, throughout the week. We've got multiple videos coming out today, but tons of content over the course of an entire fantasy football week this season. I love talking fantasy with you guys. I try to be super interactive in the comment section below, and obviously want to help you guys win your leagues this season. Check out the other links we have in the description of today's episode while you're listening to today's video. We've got TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Discord, different platforms to take advantage of. Our website, sizzlefantasy.com, for an extra edge in your leagues this year. You can sign up for a variety of packages that we've got, including me setting your lineups for you every week of the season. Another way to get access to that for free for the entire year is by heading over to Underdog Fantasy and using code SFS when you sign up and deposit just $10. They will double your money up to $100. So you put $100 in, they give you $200 to play with. Or you can get myself setting your lineup for you every week of the season for just $10, and you'll have $20 to play with. That is your money. They don't do anything with it. It just doubles in your account, and you get to play games like prop bets. I have a little bit more sweat on Sunday afternoons in terms of just, worrying your way through games because you want your bets to hit and make some money. And they've got awesome best ball platforms for main slate games and primetime contests as well. So check out Underdog. I'm on there almost every day of the NFL season playing stuff. And remember, of course, code SFS and sizzlefantasy.com. So Tony Pollard is the next name here that we're talking about, wanting to see obviously his outlook for this season. He's one of the more interesting and I would argue unknown players of the year. You've got the camp of people who are Ezekiel Elliott truthers, where I didn't necessarily find myself fully submerged in that group because I think there's a clear capped ceiling for what Zeke can be. However, for the majority of this offseason, I found myself favoring Zeke over Pollard. And then you've got the much noisier group, which is the Tony Pollard is going to supplant Zeke and take over as the RB1 for this team. And now, as training camp has progressed and things have developed here, you've got kind of a niche group in between those two outcomes, which I think is the most interesting of the three. You've got the reports and rumors of potentially lining Tony Pollard up in the slot, using him as a weapon in the passing game, and now that you've got Kevontae Turpin taking over some of the return game, probably all of the return game, let's rephrase that, responsibilities in both punt return coverage and kickoff returns. I don't know why I said coverage, because he's doing just the opposite. He's frying the coverage. But basically that allows the offense to use Tony Pollard a bit more. Again, get him out in space, catching passes. Maybe he's the third down running back for this team this year. The one thing I don't expect a lot of Tony Pollard to do is get goal line opportunities. To me, when Zeke is healthy, that's still his responsibility and his right in this offense. He's the bigger back. He's the more physical player. He can stand up to punishment. And honestly, at the end of the day, the guy who I think is still going to see more volume is Ezekiel Elliott, because he has the frame and bodily infrastructure to stand up to those blows better. But the more electric player, the more explosive athlete is 100% Tony Pollard. That is no question. I'm not debating that here. He's a phenomenal athlete. He's great out in space, and I expect him to produce nice numbers. And if that PPR value continues to progress here and be something that we're talking about every single week, then all the more power to Tony Pollard, and I think he could be a super interesting weapon to take a look at. So, again, we're talking a potential slot and pass game role split out of the backfield. We've got a really explosive running back, and obviously a lot of conversation about it. Jerry Jones is saying this offense runs through the running backs. They're going to need someone to step up in the passing game as well, though. They're undermanned. Week 1, Noah Brown is slated to be a starter. That's not awesome. You've got Jalen Tolbert, you've got Turpin, you've got CeeDee Lamb, of course, the number one guy who we're not worried about. But they need playmakers, and they need them to step up. Tony Pollard is a guy who can do that, and I'm interested to see how they use him in a pretty dang big matchup on Sunday Night Football opening the season against TB12 and the Bucks. And the final name here, we're talking through this week that I'm taking a peek at is Dameon Pierce of the Houston Texans. The reason that I'm really intrigued with this, despite the fact Pierce made my must-sit list for this week, I'm just not ready to trust him in my lineups where I have good RB depth. I actually just drafted a team last night that had horrible RB depth, so I'm starting Dameon Pierce in that league this week. A little bit hypocritical, but my next best option was Tony Pollard, who I do still have ranked lower in a tough matchup against Tampa Bay. We'll see how the other usage factors in, but basically the point being is, again, my RB depth sucks, so I don't really have an option, but Dameon Pierce is someone who, if given enough opportunities to touch the football this week, could produce. If he finds the end zone, maybe gets there a couple of times, you're looking at a really nice game, and you're looking at me being flat wrong on him this week. But I am going to give him that week of transition to the NFL, a little bit of time here to be conservative with him and obviously adjust the NFL game. The Indianapolis Colts has a stout front. It's a stingy opening matchup for any player, and it's not something I expect him to have a super efficient average touch here, and they are huge underdogs as well. So not stuff I love. But what I will be paying attention to is that if he, efficiently produces in spite of that, and this is a guy who is touching the ball a heinous amount of times, getting all the red zone work, getting some pass catching work as well, that's going to lead me to be much more comfortable, much more optimistic, and much more bullish on him in future weeks this season. If he can produce in this matchup, the opener here against the Colts, that will open the floodgates of positivity coming from us here at Sizzle Fantasy Sports. And, of course, will make Dameon Pierce a lot more valuable player on the trade market, because if he's putting up dang good points in tough matchups, that's just a sign of what's to come in some of those more, obviously, better-looking matchups on paper this season. So keep your eye out for Dameon Pierce. My estimation is he'll be this season's version of what 2020 James Robinson was. I am not the first person that came up with that analysis. I saw it somewhere. I apologize. I can't give credit to the initial person that had that take, but it's very good. It's a workhorse running back in a bad offense, a guy who has a really nice tool set, can kind of do everything at a solid level. He's no Jonathan Taylor, but he is a guy that can go out there, handle 3-down running back responsibilities. I'm not sure if Rex Burkhead's going to factor in too much in the receiving game. All that stuff to come. We're going to learn all that information at a later time, but I'm pumped to watch these guys play football this week. You guys do not understand how excited I am for week 1 football. If you're excited, smash that like button, of course. Let me know in the comment section below, who are you rooting for this week? I didn't plan on talking about this in today's video, but I love chatting with you guys, love chatting football. Of course, all fancy questions, first and foremost, are welcome and wanted down in the comment section below, so let that stuff fly. Anytime before game time is fair game. I'll get back to as many views as I possibly can. But let me know, who are you cheering on this week? Any hot takes for the week? Who do you want to see win? Who do you think is going to win? Any upsets, of course. What else do we want to put in there? Any prop bets you like this week? Maybe I'll just pick a few of your guys' answers that I like, and I'll either pin them in the description. That might get no traction and no one puts a prop bet down there. But if there is, and I like it, I'll pin it possibly, and maybe I'll even toss some money on it myself. I'll be playing prop bets on Underdog Fantasy. If you guys want to see my betting advice for this week, check out the SFS community Discord. I post all bets that I make in a special server on there for you guys to check out. So go take a peek at that. Join the community Discord server. The link's in the description of today's video. And I think that about does it for today's episode. So I appreciate the heck out of all of you guys for tuning into every single video here on the channel. It means the world to me. And I'm very, very excited to get this year rolling. It's been an awesome first week here, prepping games and getting you guys ready to go. I'm ready to go. I hope you guys feel prepared as well and excited for football action. We've got 18 months. I wish it was 18 months. 18 weeks of bliss. And then we've got ourselves the NFL playoffs. And then we're getting back into the hangover, but I don't even want to think about it. It's so far away. The season is just starting here, so I'm already dreading the end. That's how excited I get for action in the National Football League. So thank you guys so much. I'll see you in the next video. Peace out.